Okay, I'm recording.
Hi, welcome to the Invisible Movement webinar, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Aloha, and this is Paul on the screen. And here we are the founders of the Invisible Movement series with Dr. Kesban and Isaac, who couldn't make it today, but we are all here and dedicated to preventing human trafficking through awareness, education, healing, and community action. Just real quickly, a bit about my background. I spent over 30 years as a chief of staff and senior advisor and other various positions ever at the Department of Transportation and Federal Aviation Administration, as well as the Federal Transit Administration. I worked on a number of just national transportation safety policies, workforce initiatives, and public sector innovation. It helped to write the safety management systems rules across aviation and transit, and also launched the FTA's Counter Human Trafficking Program. So, on behalf of the Invisible Movement, we're really grateful that you've chosen to spend your time with us today. And we created the Invisible Movement around a really simple belief that human trafficking cannot be solved through just enforcement alone. And we believe that lasting change requires awareness, prevention, healing, collaboration, and communities that are willing to come together and protect one another. So, in our monthly webinar series, we bring together leaders from government, transportation, education, healthcare, research, law enforcement, nonprofit organizations, faith-based communities, and individuals who've lived experience to explore the many different dimensions of human trafficking and, more importantly, the solutions that can help us create a long-lasting change. So this series is designed to educate, inspire, and connect people who believe that every individual deserves safety, dignity, hope, and opportunity to heal. I also want to transition over and introduce you to our website at www.invisiblemovement.org, which we launched this week. I don't know if you have that, Paul, and you can put that in the chat for us.
Okay.
But the website is like an information resource. It's more than just talking about our webinar series and providing you with access to our newsletters. It's actually designed to help individuals, families, professionals, educators, researchers, and communities on a healing journey, but also provide them with information. So you'll find, not only our monthly webinars and newsletter archive, but you'll find the Healing Hub there. It's a resource for healing and recovery. We also have volunteer opportunities, community of practices, partnership opportunities, and different ways that you can become involved in building this movement. So each page is interactive. You'll be able to get on there. It allows for collaboration, so you can upload like your own healing journeys, your own healing art, your own healing songs, sounds, words, for example, and hopefully it'll help you and anyone that you come into contact with. You feel like we'll need some healing modalities. We have it up there and accessible for you, and we also have a free. It's called a drift assessment that's there to help you identify what your limiting beliefs are. And it'll give you the top three limiting beliefs to help you kind of self-reflect and understand where you're coming from when you're making decisions in life. So now I want to turn over to Paul. Can you do a quick introduction of yourself, and then I'll segue into our today's topic.
Thank you so much, Aloha. Hello, everyone. My name is Paul Chang. I'm a lecturer at Cal State LA and Vanguard University. I also have over 30 years of experience with the government. Here to facilitate and help uh, and learn as we move along to this important topic. Thank you. And heading back to you, Aloha.
Thank you. So, before we begin today's discussion, I want to take a quick moment to reflect on why healing matters, which is today's conversation. And when we talk about human trafficking, we're often focused on the crime, the investigation, and the rescue. But even though those are really important, healing is what allows people to reclaim their lives, and healing restores hope. It rebuilds trust. It reconnects us to ourselves and to others. And then it reminds us that our experience doesn't really define our future. So healing is not a destination. I see it as a journey, and that journey looks very different with every person. And so whether that healing comes through counseling or community or faith, art, nature, mindfulness, service, or just simply being heard, every step forward really matters. And so that's why I'm so honored today to bring together a panel of experts and leaders who are going to help us to better understand trauma, resilience, and then different pathways to healing. And our hope is that this conversation not only informs, but also inspires each of us to become a part of creating a space where healing is possible. And with that, I want to introduce our panel. Let's start with Mariah, and then we'll go to you, Melanie, and then when Dr. Deborah comes on, is Dr. Deborah on? When Dr. Deborah comes on, we'll introduce Dr. Deborah as well. But Mariah, if you can start with your introductions, and then after the introductions, I'm going to segue back to you so you can kind of tell us your journey and your story.
Yeah, thank you, Aloha. My name is Mariah Reef. I am a federally recognized survivor of sex trafficking in the largest sex trafficking case to be prosecuted to date in the Girls Who Porn trafficking case. I'm also a member of the California Survivors Coalition, where we help to push policy in California and federally. So I'm excited to be here.
So awesome. And thank you for joining us. Melanie?
Hi, hello everyone. My name is Melanie. I am a licensed marriage family therapist. I'm a trauma therapist. I've been in humanitarian work for about 30 years, but I've licensed and clinical work for about 15 years. I serve survivors every single day. In fact, I just came from a camp, foster kids, so that was really neat yesterday, and I can share a little bit about that. But I am also a survivor myself. And I guess I'm on the panel to share what it's like to just like one-on-one. I have helped survivors that way. And I'm just very excited to hear everyone and talk about healing today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariah. Um, let's see. We have Dr. Deborah Dunstan. You are here. So I'm going to pump this over to do a quick introduction, and then I'll go back to Maria. And then I think Dr. Deborah, you want to share your story as well today. So let's go to your introductions.
Okay, I am Dr. Deborah Dunstan. I am a pastoral psychotherapist and trauma recovery specialist, the founder of Healing Lives Fellowship, and I also am a survivor and the author of Three Nights in Captivity, which shares my story of my experience, well, I call it my deliverance from the trafficking, and also my healing process. And that it is possible to have vision beyond the trauma that you went through.
I just want to say that I'm so honored to have you ladies on the Invisible Movement. It is just incredible, your stories, and I'm so glad that people are going to be able to hear it, because I think once you share your stories, you'll inspire others to then share theirs, and I think that'll start, their journey of healing as well. But let's, as we always do, we open up with a story. And so today we're actually going to have two stories. We're going to have, Mariah talk about her story, and then we're going to shift over to Dr. Deborah, and then we'll go into the panel discussion. So Mariah, would you do us the honors of telling us and sharing us your story?
Yeah, thank you. So I was actually adopted. I was in foster care because my biological mother was selling her body and having children as a result of supporting her drug addiction. Somebody stepped in and actually called DFS when they realized that the children were being sold as well. So, I think that when you talk about a big trauma, it often always goes back to childhood. And I learned as a very young child that I never felt wanted. So I learned how to become useful, right? Because if you're useful, somebody might keep you around. Somebody might want to protect you. And I never felt wanted, and I never felt safe as a child. And when you have that feeling as a foundation, that will inevitably follow you into adulthood. And so I never had examples of role models. I had a lot of examples of what I didn't want to be. And that, I believe, you either become what you saw growing up and what you had, or you become the complete opposite. And I kind of went the complete opposite. So I left Missouri at 18. I came to California. And when you're 18, you think that you are an adult, right? You're grown. You don't need anybody to tell you anything. I literally remember saying, some things I just need to learn the hard way. Like you say that today, you're just like, girl, no, you don't. Okay. But you think you think that you have all the answers and that you're untouchable. And so I believed that it would be as easy as just getting a couple modeling gigs and maybe I'll pay my rent and maybe, this was a little bit before the influencer, but this was about 2016. Um, but it was still expensive in California. Cost of living, Missouri and California, it just shell shock. Okay. And I found myself working a part-time job. Minimum wage at that time was $10 an hour, and it wasn't cutting it. So I called home and I called my mom and I said, I can't afford car insurance, right? And I'm 19 and I know everything. So I'm like, and I know that if I don't get car insurance, they're going to tow my car. That doesn't happen, right? But again, this is the adolescence, right? Of the I know everything. And I said, I just need help. I need like $70. And my mom said, Mariah, you're in Cali. You're in Hollywood, baby. Okay. I was in San Diego. But that again, in the Midwest, you have this idea that's portrayed from the media of what California is and the opportunities and how easy it can be for a young person, a really pretty person to just come out and have your headshot in your back pocket and a producer is going to come and discover you. That was my mom's dream for me. And so she didn't understand why I wasn't just utilizing that. Like, why are you not modeling? This is absurd. Why are you calling us for help? And I said, oh, mom, no, I look like everyone else out here, and I'm not willing to wear a thong bikini. Like, it's different out here. And it was just a cultural, like, I was in a new place. I had no friends or family out in California, but I just had a dream to have a better life than what I experienced. And to also make meaning of, like, I'm more than just useful, like, I can create a really beautiful life for myself. And that's what I wanted. And so she just persisted and said, Mariah, you need to model. The opportunities out there are like everywhere. And she said, why aren't you looking on Craigslist? I was born in 1997. Around 2011, there was a documentary or a movie or something called The Craigslist Killer, if you guys remember. Okay. So I always associated Craigslist with you're gonna die. Never go alone kind of thing. So when she said this, it was like, she doesn't understand the internet, and that's fine, right? You're gonna help me, mom, right? She wasn't, though. She wasn't gonna help me. That was her help was telling me to go to Craigslist. And when I realized that, I did because I was 19 and I didn't have anywhere else to turn. So I start responding to every modeling ad because none of them mentioned nudity. None of them. There were some weird ones. Like I remember seeing one and it was like, go skydiving in your bikini for $1,000. And I'm not kidding. I remember being that 19-year-old being like, California is crazy. Wow, that's amazing. You'd never see this in Missouri. But just really like too good to be true ads, right? A lot of money for a little bit of work. And all I needed to do was be 18 and pretty. Okay. So that thinking of like, I can do this. I don't need advice. I got this. I did it. And I responded to all these ads. And the next day I got a response and they called me and it was an urgent, hey, did you respond to this? Because we have a job today. And I was like, I like just woke up and I was like, oh, what? Me? Seriously? Okay. Because again, I'm still thinking like somebody sees value in me, right? Somebody wants me. Wow, that was way faster than I thought. Can you make it today? 2 o'clock. And I was like, oh, where is it? At that time, I was sleeping on a couch. I was very, very, I just needed help. I needed a lot of help financially, mentally. And so I'm living on this couch and I knew that where this location was, it was downtown San Diego. I could make it there, but I didn't have enough gas to get back if it was not legit. And that was the first sense of hesitation that I had was what if I got stranded? And I paused and they picked up on that pause. And the voice on the other line said, well, would it make you more comfortable if you spoke with a woman who has worked with us before? Duh. Yeah. Like, well, of course, I would much rather talk to a woman about a modeling opportunity than a man all day. So within 10 minutes, I would say, my phone rings and it was what they would call a reference model. And she was very to the point. Yes, this is real. Yes, this is professional. Yes, you will get paid. No, you're not going to die. That's all. That check, check, check. I didn't ask any questions. I said, okay. Got in my car and I went downtown. I believe in intuition. I mean, Paul, sorry, but women especially, we have this intuition that you can't deny, you just have to bury sometimes, right? So when I get to this parking garage, I park and I feel that pit in my stomach that this something's wrong. And before I can really like dive into that, my phone rings again, and it's the same guy that tells me to go downtown. Hey, did you make it? I did. All right, this is what you're gonna do. And it was as if somebody was holding my hand every step of the way. You're gonna walk into the lobby, then you're gonna see this guy, and then he's gonna take over, and his name is this, and he's gonna look like this. And to the exact way that it was described, that's how it was, right? Until I meet with the photographer in the lobby, and my thought was that we would we would exchange what I was going to be modeling and pay, and we would go outside because I was told there was going to be a beachfront photo shoot. And when he started walking to the elevator, my intuition kicked back up and I just froze. And he's like literally pressing the button of the elevator and looks behind and sees that I'm not there. I'm just like stuck. And he like hurries to me and he goes, sorry, I didn't explain. This is a really professional modeling opportunity. There's quite a bit of money involved. And so for your privacy, we got a room just to sign paperwork. And then, we'll further explain what's going to go down. And I was like, oh, okay. 19, right? Okay, sure. That makes sense. That's so kind of you. You didn't have to do that. I thought we would just sign at the bar. Like, I'm fine. Okay. So we go upstairs and he's very friendly. And then the elevator door opens and we get on the floor and we're walking and he's walking side by side. And then he starts walking behind me, right? And again, you're like pushing the intuition down because I don't have gas money to get home. We've committed to this. And I just kind of am like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And he's like, no, it's right there. It's room, whatever. And he's pointing around me. And I was like, no, but really, what are you doing? Like, this is getting weird. And as I'm having this conversation with him, we approach the door and he puts his arm around me and has the room key and opens the door. When he opens the hotel room door, I'm immediately hit with the smell of marijuana. And as most hotel rooms are designed, when you enter the hotel room, it's the bathroom right there, right? It's like the bathroom door. The bathroom door was cracked. And so that's where the smell of marijuana was coming from. But that's also where I could see a silhouette of a much taller individual that I was not anticipating at all. And again, I froze. And he was behind me so that if I wanted to back up, I was backing up into him. And he put his hand on my lower back and he kind of just comes forward a little bit and he whispers and he goes, it's best if you just walk forward. And I explained to you what this is. And it was a moment that we're all survivors. So unfortunately, I'm sure we've all experienced where you have a million thoughts in a matter of a millisecond. I'm going to die. They're going to kidnap me. I'm not getting paid. Where's my exit plan? What do I do? In the matter of this millisecond. And the most prominent thought I had in that moment was, if I step through this door, I know that they are going to get whatever they want from me without there being any consent. Like, I understood in that moment deeply in my bones that walking through this door, not that I had an option of walking through, but walking through would mean I would have no say in what was going to come after that. And so then the next thought was, okay, how do we survive this? How do we get out? Like, how do we just get out of this? So I do what he says and I walk through the door. And once I make it past the bathroom with the silhouette, I notice that there are studio lights that are on. There's 6 of them pointed on the bed. And then you just feel like that's the pit in your stomach just deeper, deeper. And you're like, oh gosh. And I remember the moment of being like, I'm gonna freaking lose my mind. Like, I'm gonna freak out. So I need to not do that. I need to go numb. Please go numb. Go numb, go numb, go numb, go numb. And I opened my eyes and I looked out the window and I saw a loading dock. I had just come from Missouri a year prior where we're landlocked, baby. The best thing we got is the muddy Mississippi. There's not much to look at. I had never seen a loading dock. And I went, oh my God, Dole pineapple trucks? That's how that works? Oh, I've only seen those in the grocery store. And it was the look on the photographer's face. He looked just as scared as I felt, right? Like he was like, what is happening to this girl right now? Because I was so dissociated. I was so invested in, oh my gosh, that's a loading dock. Do you see that magnet? I didn't realize that it picked up and completely consumed myself in what was happening outside so that I could survive what was happening in that room. And he just goes, just sit down, please. And so I sit down. Okay, okay. And in my mind, I thought, just smile, just agree, just be agreeable, just do whatever they want you to do so you have the highest chance of getting out. Don't even expect pay. Just do what they want to do. Don't ask questions. Just, okay, okay, sure, no problem. So that's what I did. And he hands me an envelope, a Bank of America envelope with cash. And when he handed it to me, it was kind of like it was heavy, you know? And so again, I'm just like, okay, okay. Because there is not just gas, but there's my rent. There's my dinner. I had been surviving off of other people's leftovers from work and ramen, like that's where my brain started. It was never, oh my gosh, I'm going to go buy Louis Vuitton and I'm going to go get these shoes and all these things I get to buy. It was like, oh wow, I can actually meet my basic needs if I can get out of this hotel room tonight. Okay, all right. And so I sat there and he said, so it's modeling, but probably not to what you were thinking. And I was like, uh-huh, yep, you got that right. Yeah, go on. And he said, it's going to be adult videos, but it's never going to see the light of day because it's never going to touch the internet. It's going to go on DVDs for rich white men in Australia. Okay, okay, okay. And he goes, but we need you to sign this contract. And we're gonna video you saying that we're not forcing you to sign this contract. Okay, right? Like I don't care. You could tell me to eat a bug, and I would have done it with a smile because I'm just trying to get out of that room. And so what proceeded after I signed this contract, they made it into this professional thing. A professional makeup artist came in and did my makeup. I had a tattoo they covered with foundation for my anonymity, right? They painted my fingernails. They had brought clothes in that they had gone to, what was it, Forever 21. And they're like, you get to pick out your own outfit and you get to keep it, right? It's all about making me feel special. I'm chosen. I'm wanted here. So for me, the child in me is like, you're doing good, girl. Good job. Not that I chose this, but it was almost like this is almost like what you were born to do, in a sense, is be useful to people. And this is, I guess, what they need you to be useful for. And it was just all about just don't make them upset. Just try to get out. And so for 8 hours, I was in that hotel room. They would do 5-minute scenes and then 2-minute touch-ups for makeup. And it lasted for 8 hours. And then they get what they got. They have everything they need and they say, all right, you're good to go. And like faster than you could grab anything, you're grabbing as much stuff as you can and just running. I'm running at the door and I grab the handle. And then the male star, his name is Andre Garcia, yells out, oh, by the way, if you have any friends, you could be a reference model too. And every fear instinct I had turned to fucking rage. It's pardon my language. I'm so sorry. Turned to rage because wait a second. I did speak to what? Who was that? What was that? Because I spoke to a woman that I trusted. I didn't trust you, but I trusted that woman. Who was that? And I asked. I said, "What was that?" And he laughed. Like the man that like thinks he's got the upper hand. He's like, ha ha ha. Like he saw this turn in me. And he goes, yeah, she made $100 for convincing you to shoot with us. And she didn't even do anything, did she? And I was like, because again, for me, I'm having all these thoughts in a matter of a millisecond. And all that echoed was, she only made $100 for this? Seriously? And I'm having this thought process, and he interrupts that by saying, yeah, it's easy money. You can make that too. But you need to understand, we don't pay A girls the same that we don't pay B girls. And B girls don't make what C girls get. And we definitely don't employ D girls. And their recruitment system and their ranking and how it was as if I was literally in a room with people that didn't see me as a human being. And that turned my rage to fear again. And I just darted out the door. And I ran to my car and went to work the next day as if nothing happened, because that's unfortunately, I think, what happens to a lot of people that experience a massive trauma is a part of you dies when something like that happens, but nobody ever knows because you're forced to leave and wake up and do life as if it never happened. right? And so the reason that when I introduce myself, I say I'm a federally recognized victim of sex trafficking in the Girls Who Porn case is not at all because I identify as a victim. It's simply just a fact. And the fact that follows that is statistically, survivors of sex trafficking, I believe the Safe House Project statistic is less than 1% of survivors of sex trafficking ever get law enforcement recognition, which means 99% of survivors and victims are blamed and even prosecuted, right, for prostitution or their own exploitation. And so I don't identify with being a victim. I'm nobody's victim, okay? Victimization is what happened to me. Victimhood will never be how I identify. And so I think the important thing to realize with my story is when you have the foundation of the child that equated being loved as being useful, that's already traumatic to a developing brain. And so what trauma does, it doesn't teach you to recognize danger. It teaches you how to tolerate it. And so if I can just leave anybody with anything from my story, I would just encourage everybody and anybody, no matter how big or little your trauma is, to just unidentify with your trauma and to instead identify with the warrior you had to become in the aftermath. Because in all the autonomy that is lost in any trauma, but especially a sex crime related trauma, your autonomy is so much greater in what you do after the fact. And it doesn't even mean you have to go be the speaker, you have to go change policy, you have to do anything. It's okay if that just means you take it one day at a time, right? But deciding to not identify with the worst thing that ever happened to you is the first step in your healing, at least for me. And I've just been so grateful to share platforms with people like you and Dr. Deborah and Melanie and Loha and Paul and everybody who even wants to have the conversation. I'm grateful we're able to have this conversation now, because there's so much to learn and there's so much good we can extract from something so horrendous. So that is my story. And so again, since then I've joined the California Survivor Coalition, which is just a coalition of survivors in California. But we band together to use our experiences to help politicians and legislators fill in the gaps in policy, right? Trafficking has so many different avatars. It's not just a one size fits all. There's so many different ways that this manifests. And so for us to be able to use our experience to say, hey, this is how we can build a better system to support survivors and organizations doing the work in the trenches, I couldn't think of a better thing to do after the fact. And so I'm grateful for the platform.
Maria, we are so grateful to you for being so strong and so inspirational. I mean, your story, I'm sure, touches so many other women. And it's just a lot of women are in fear and they don't want to share that because it's a shame that they carry. But I see that when you share that shame is when you actually start to heal yourself. And so that I think your strength comes from just the ability to kind of overcome that shame, right? And that just being strong enough to kind of pull people in and saying it's okay to be in this space. So I love your story and I love the the purpose behind it. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm gonna shift over to Dr. Deborah. I want to give you some time to also share your story because we want to be able to move forward with different lenses so that anyone who's watching kind of learn through these lenses. So Dr. Deborah, would you do us the honor? Thank you, Maria.
You're on mute.
There, can you hear me?
We
Yes.
can hear you now.
Yes, now
Right.
you're good.
I've already introduced myself, and many people, I'm here on behalf of those who were brought into a trafficking experience in a what we thought was a unique way, but it's one that's been happening all around since the days of pimping you, they used to call it. But many people assume that all victims of trafficking are uneducated, reckless, involved in unhealthy activity, simply unaware of dangers, but I was aware. But let me share a story with you. It's as a lot of our stories, it's not a pretty story. In fact, in some instances, it's a downright ugly story. But it is a story that's happening, as we know, not only in our nation, but around the world today. And it's a story that this is the story of a young lady who she had moved into a brand new area. She wanted to make her life different after leaving some situations in her hometown in the Midwest. She wanted to start a new life. So she chose a new city to go to. And at the time, she was attending college, but during the day, she also worked as an accounting specialist. And she saw that college was becoming a little bit more, just like in many situations, we are trying to find the money to do the things we want to do. So you're in this new city, you don't know anyone. And she decided to get a job part-time at a club, in a nightclub, because she had learned to sing when she was 9 and started competing at the age of 12. And so she wanted to use what you have. And many times you want to get what you want to get, you use what you have. And she had the voice. And so as she worked during the day as an accounting specialist and attended school 3 nights a week to get her degree, she started singing in a nightclub. So she wasn't involved in drugs. She wasn't abusing alcohol, and she sat in that nightclub and didn't have a drink, nothing but some Coke and maybe some Sprite. She wasn't running away from home. She was having a new experience, and she was being careful about her surroundings. No one knew where she lived. She took the bus home in this new city. She was being careful. She was a hardworking young woman who was just trying to make ends meet. But it was while singing at this nightclub that she met a male colleague who also was doing the same. He seemed charming, attentive, and interested in her. Now, you may wonder, how do I know this young lady's story so much? How do I know her secrets and know what was going through and where she was going? But I know this young lady up close and personal, because that lady is me. And all through that time that I lived in this particular city, I was walking in the joy of leaving a situation that I thought was controlling my life already. And so I thought that I was prepared. But what appeared to be a relationship beginning, a new relationship, was actually the beginning of a grooming process that I helped to coin the phrase for in Washington, D.C. And it's now used nationally, and it is called boyfriending. It starts off looking like someone who cared. But the attention, the emotional connection, and the promises were not leading to a healthy relationship. They were leading towards manipulation, control, and ultimately a dangerous situation that forever changed my life. But I too don't call myself a victim, because although it changed my life, now it has changed my life. I use that. It changed my life in a positive way. That experience eventually became the foundation for my book, 3 Nights in Captivity, and for my practice in trauma recovery with Healing Lives Fellowship. You see, let me tell you a little bit more. When I met this man, he made me feel like I was the only person in the room. And I got to tell you, he was fine. He was fine. So there were a lot of women in the club that actually wanted him. And I was so excited to see he wanted little old me. He noticed everything about me. He remembered the little details I even had forgotten that I had even told him. He called just to hear my voice sometimes, and I would pick up my little cell phone that I had bought myself, and he would say, "Hey, baby, I just called to say I love you." He would even sing a little bit, because he could sing too. He would text me good morning before I even woke up in the morning. I pick up my phone, my little flip phone at the time, and it said, "Good morning already," with a little emoji. And at night, before I even got to the bed and laid my head on the pillow, you better believe there was a good night waiting there for me. And I remember thinking to myself, finally, someone sees me and they choose me. Out of all these women in this nightclub, they choose me. You see, a lot of time when we've been through childhood trauma, growing up in domestic violence the way I did, watching beatings night after night of my mom, God bless my father's soul, but watching him carry his demons into their long-term marriage and watching my mother getting beaten and the kids being kind of lost in the confusion of everything, and then being sexually molested by someone my parents trusted because there was so much going on in a dysfunctional situation that the children were we were what was forgotten sometimes. You know, I feel like my parents as young teen parents did their best, but many times your children are left to defend for themselves. And so at that time in my life as a young woman, I found myself actually looking for love in all the wrong places. I remember thinking to myself that his attention felt safe. Somebody who checks on you at night, makes sure you're doing okay, call your house. But then things begin to change little by little. He would often ask where I was, but not because he was worried about me, but because he always wanted to know where I was. I thought this was a good thing. Somebody, he knew I was new in the city. He knew I had nobody there because, see, he asked these questions, but never told me much about himself. But he knew I didn't have family in the city. He knew that I didn't own a car. He knew that only thing he didn't know is my address because I thought that was the safe thing to do. If I didn't answer my phone right away, I remember this. He would kind of jokingly say, "Who you with? You got to have somebody over there because you fine as, you know." And I would laugh it off because I always thought he was teasing me, you know, just kind of teasing me because I was so devoted. You know, the one thing about this man too, this young man, he was older than I was, first of all, so he was very charismatic, was that he did not ask me for sex. So I just knew this him, Lord. He ain't trying to get my body, you know. But I didn't think about, I had told him how I felt about that. He knew I told him about my abuse. And so he knew not to do that, that would, for me, that would be a red flag. And so here's this man on the way to this. I'm going to save it for if we do get married. I didn't know at the time that because he was the front man, he could not touch me. I was being saved, a woman who don't drink, who don't do drugs, who don't sleep around. I was prime property and bought big dollars. And so if he had touched me, it's kind of like the drug people say, don't get high off your own supply. So if you're the person selling for the drug dealer, you don't smoke up his drugs. So he could not touch me. I did not belong to him. You know, I always thought that he cared, but looking back, I know that he didn't. He started to want all my free time. If I made plans with friends, he'd become really quiet. You know, not abusive like I thought of abuse, because he knew what I thought abuse was because I grew up in it. I thought I'm the authority on watching domestic violence. So he did not those things. But if I told him I had plans, he would get quiet. He would not tell me not to go now. Because see, that's that's controlling. He wouldn't tell me not to go. Instead, he would just say, "Oh, I thought we were going to spend some time together. I had something special planned for us." I started canceling my plans because I didn't want him to feel hurt. I told myself that's what relationships are all about. You make sacrifices. My dad didn't make sacrifices for my mom. I wasn't going to be like that, right? He used to say sometimes when I started getting dressed and he started watching me if I got dressed at his place. Remember, he didn't know where I lived, so I would mostly spend the time at his place. When I started getting dressed and I go in my bag and I put something on, it began by just giving me advice about what I was wearing. He just say little things like, I don't think you look good in that too much, but I think you would look better in something a little less revealing, a little bit less revealing. You showing all your goodies. Or he'll say, I don't like it when guys look at you. You my baby. You belong to me, but in a caring way. You belong to me, baby. Or you say, that kind of make me feel uncomfortable. Why don't you run in the room and put on something else? You know what I mean? Like just little by little taking control. But he would say it so gently that I thought it sounded like protection instead of controlling. So what I do, I changed. Many times you see broken people become people pleasers. You don't want to make anybody mad. I watched my mom make my dad mad, and I saw what happened to her. And plus, I wanted people to love me and not love me for my body. He knew what I wanted. Then my friends, they became a problem for him. I don't think she's a good influence on you. She out there popping and locking like that and showing all her stuff. Or if I'm with a man and I tell him about something that happened at work, I don't trust him. I want you to stay away from him. Or the big one, he used to say, they don't really care about you like I do, right? I got your back. You want anything, you come to me. So little by little, the people who I had come to know disappeared from my life. You see, I thought I was choosing love. I didn't realize that I was choosing isolation. The compliments slowly became criticism, and he started pointing out everything I did wrong. You always overreacted. You too emotional. You remembering that wrong. You got to be imagining thing, baby. Come on now. Eventually, I even questioned my own memory more than I questioned him. When I cried because something was hurting me, somehow the conversation always ended up with me apologizing. Back then, I couldn't explain what had just happened. But the man who once made me feel beautiful, made me feel safe, now made me feel like I wasn't enough. Because if he got angry, it's my fault. If he ignored me for days, I must have done something wrong. I don't know if you've ever been there. If he exploded, then brought me flowers the next day, I believe the flowers more than I believe the explosion. I kept chasing the man I met in the beginning. I thought that if I could just be sweeter, quieter, prettier, less emotional, more understanding, that he would become that man again. I didn't realize something important. The man in the beginning wasn't really the real man. He had just become the person that he knew that I was looking for. Many times in trauma carriers, we become targets unless we get the support that we need to heal. That's how he convinced me one day to go with him to this dark apartment. I didn't like the area of town, had never been over there, but I told you I did my research. And so I didn't want to go, but he said, baby, I got you. Have I ever let anything happen to you? And I wanted to be a good girl and make that good man come back, right? So the thing is, no one wakes up one morning and volunteers to be controlled. We don't volunteer to be manipulated or emotionally abused. But boyfriending doesn't happen or usually arrive wearing a warning label. Warning, warning. It arrives dressed as love, concern, protection, and devotion. And by the time the mask actually slip, so has your confidence. You start questioning yourselves. And in many trafficking survivors report that they were recruited, groomed, and exploited through what they believe was a genuine friendship, a job offer, or a relationship. At first, it looks like affection or people that care about you or people that's trying to help you or people that's trying to, just help you get ahead. Today, I know this. Love or care doesn't make you feel smaller. It don't ask you to do stuff that you wouldn't do. It doesn't require you to give up your voice. It doesn't isolate you from healthy people. It doesn't make you feel afraid of disappointing someone. Real love, real care helps you become more of who you were created to be. And the greatest lesson I learned is this: The first thing an unhealthy relationship steals isn't your freedom. It's the ability to recognize that you're losing it. That's it. What I've just described isn't fictional. It's the emotional journey that many survivors experience, including myself. Before there were 3 nights in captivity, there were months of subtle compromises, misplaced trust, and a relationship that didn't begin with chains in it. It began with attention. Today, I share this story, not because it defines me today, but because it teaches an important lesson. Traffickers do not always come looking like criminals. Sometimes they come wrapped up in something that looks like an answer to a prayer you was waiting for. So that's why it's so important to understand the many faces and voices of trafficking. So to Aloha and the team and to all of us who are standing up, I say thank you. I say thank you for deciding to step up and take a stance against trafficking. We'll no longer hide in the shadows. We'll continue to speak up and speak out. Thank you.
That was such an amazing story. We had two amazing stories, and they're so diverse. And, as you mentioned, Dr. Dunstan, and thank you for just honoring us with that. And it's so important to share that, the nuances behind the scenes that people are rarely ever share, really. And I love that the Invisible Movement allows that platform. I mean, I want everyone to feel free to share without caveats, without any constrictions behind, what you should say, what you should not say, because a victim should have a voice. And this is really what the platform is about. So I am so glad both of you have shared with your heart, and it's so authentic and it comes across just that way. And this is exactly what we need. So thank you both for that. Melanie is actually going to be sharing her story next month when the 3 ladies will join us again, and I'm so privileged to have them want to come back next month. There's just so much material here that we just didn't, we couldn't do it justice with just one sitting. So they'll be back next month, and I hope that everyone here will join us again next month. But let's immediately shift gears into, let's talk about, some things that you can share with all of us in terms of where you've come from and where you are today with the backgrounds that you all have, because that's such an amazing journey that you went through. For everyone here, many people think healing has an endpoint, but does healing truly ever end? And does it evolve throughout our lives? And what has been your experience? Maybe we can start with Melanie.
Hi. Wow, those are such powerful stories. I just wanted to thank you myself and I was just capturing all the nuances because I do see a lot of survivors, and it's just not what you think. It really isn't. I do want to say healing. One of the things that I just noticed about our conversation today um, was grooming. That was pretty intense today. And what you said, I just really wanted to say about Mariah when you said like your observation is actually modeling. We're being modeled right when we're younger. What is right? What is wrong? What is acceptable? What is not acceptable? But you're being modeled. Grooming, it does not just start with a boyfriend coming in, right? It comes prior to that. It comes to you being raised a certain kind of way. Am I going to be a good girl? I'm going to be obedient. I don't want to make anyone mad, because if I make someone mad, then I don't know what the outcome will be. So that's internally already in you prior to what's going to happen to with regards to captivity or coercion, right? It's internally already in you. And so I noticed in these 2 stories that you already had that thought. Okay, I'm supposed to be obedient. I need to make sure that I have to pay my bills. So you're just doing in innocence, doing certain things. I got to go sing because that's my voice. I know I can do that. I'm going to utilize that to make ends meet. I'm going to go 18, hello. I'm going to show up and just be beautiful, of course, and you just think that way. And there's just an innocence to that. But it's not only if you're 18 or if you can also be older. And I'll talk about that a little bit later too, So Um, my healing has been a very huge journey. Because later on you'll find out that what happened to me started when my father, who was a military man from the Philippines, who was recruited in the 1960s, came to the United States, and he left my mom there until she came over here. And when she came over here, she's this young Filipino woman who just needed someone to babysit her two little girls. And from there, that's when the exploitation happened to me. That's later. I'll talk to you about that. But my healing journey started when I realized that I was actually abused. I didn't even know I was. And so through a lot of understanding later on, faith is very important to me. Also community and just realizing, hey, you know what? I really was hurt. And then from there, my journey began of healing. So I am a trauma-informed therapist. So I do believe in somatic work and helping your body, not only talking about it, which is wonderful, but I also do somatic therapy, EMDR, and things that have transformed me. It's not just about your cognition, it's about your body too. So that's how I started with my healing process. Thank you.
I love that you mentioned the somatic experience. If we have time at the end of our session today, I actually asked Melanie if she could walk us through a mindful moment before we close out. So hopefully we'll be able to do that. Let me ask Maria, same question. I mean, how does healing, I mean, does it truly end? Has it ended? And how were you able to kind of evolve it through your life?
Yeah, I think you touched on something at the beginning of the opening of this webinar where healing can come from
Mm.
a multitude of different things. It can be religion, it can be art, it can be therapy, it can be, moving your body, singing. And so for me, you hear the cheesy term, but it's so true. Healing is not linear. I can have moments where I can go to court and be this rock star and give a victim impact statement and talk to reporters and in the sea of crying women, I'm like, let's go. And then the next day I'm probably at a puddle. So it's exactly to everyone's point. It's not what you think it is. And I think for me, I always want to be evolving, because I don't want to be stagnant. I found that talk therapy, I was in talk therapy for about 8 years. And that was great until I just couldn't find a therapist that like could present a different perspective, right? I found it was a lot of like, yeah, you have every right to be pissed. Yeah. Yeah, that was crazy. And it's like, yeah, but like, how do I make meaning of this kind of thing? And so for me, I found that in my art. Behind me, I have my art. And, I started with mosaics because something about breaking glass to make something even more beautiful really, really resonated deeply in me. And this idea that, like, I can't be what all these people online are saying about me if I am capable of making beautiful art, which then translates to beautiful children. And it really is hard to maintain this old conditioning that you're worthless when you're actually producing a lot of value. And I think that grace is something when you're talking about healing, you must also have grace. Have grace for the times where you're pissed and you need to scream and you need to feel what you need to feel, but also have grace for the things that you couldn't have possibly known how to handle that only time could have taught you, right? Like there's so many things that I wish I could have gone back and been like, do this differently or do this, right? We all do that. So just having grace with like, I understand that I did the very best that I could with what I had and what I knew in that moment. And I'm doing that today. And 10 years from now, I'll probably look back and say the same thing. But to your question, I think that we're always healing. And I think that, at least for me, I try very much not to identify with what happens to me. And so it's only hard if I decide it's hard. It's only going to keep me stuck if I decide it's going to keep me stuck. But if I decide that I'm going to pull the lesson from that and move forward and use it to help something or somebody else with it, then that's what it is. And I've found that to be very cathartic. Art is very cathartic for me. I love healing or I love therapy. I'm fascinated about human psychology. So I would love to pick Melanie's brain with the somatic and the trauma informed. But yeah, I think that it's a constant journey, and it should constantly evolve to wherever you are. It should meet you with where you are, and it should be met with grace because it's not linear and it's not easy. What works for me may not work for Melanie or Dr. Deborah or you or Paul, and that's okay. So that's been my
I love that.
experience with
No, I love that.
healing.
It's as individual as we are individuals, right? And I love your whole art thing because on the healing on the website, on our Invisible Movement website, there's actually a piece in there called Healing Art, where I'm asking people to upload their art, things that have made them heal. So I'd love, for you to contribute, some of your artwork, and so people could see
Yeah,
what
I love
you've
it.
done and how you were able to heal from that. And then we do the somatic stuff because there's stuff on the website where you can walk yourself through some breathing exercises, some meditational exercises, reflection exercises. And so we wanted to make sure that we paired, the conversation, but also pair it with healing because that sort of goes hand in hand. You need to be able to have a modality for healing. So I love that you ladies have that. And before I keep going down this tangent, I'm going to actually turn this back to Dr. Deborah because I would love to hear, your perspective as well about, your healing and does it truly end and how we're able to evolve your healing process.
I have my first book is called Getting Free and Staying Free. And so I kind of look at getting free as the talk therapy piece. As a pastoral psychotherapy, I work with people of the church, people of faith. It doesn't matter which one. So I use the modality. Actually have some somatic stuff too. I am a certified meditation guide and Reiki master. So I use some different modalities. At John Hopkins, I'm known as an integrative therapist. And so I do use talk therapy, which is the cognitive, but I also work a lot on the behavior side too, and helping people to the stay free part of it, because a lot of our patterns we can repeat. So I don't think healing stops really because of triggers, things that can come along. Sometimes I'll even notice now, and I'm being transparent, that because my husband did pass away, and so I'm alone, and so I have to watch my words. I work a lot with words and the way they manifest things that we call into our lives. So I do a lot of visualization and actually affirmations. And so I do sacred scripting. That's one of the things that I actually use in my practice. And so I think it's a process. My first book says on the back of it that healing is a process. Processes don't stop because it processes and it processes and it processes. And freedom is a journey. So it says healing is a process and freedom is a journey, getting free and staying free. And so I work on that part of it and now more on the behavioral part of it. How to handle it when, I don't even say if, how to handle it when that thing meets you again on the road, how to handle situations. There are going to be people who are going to be narcissistic. It's just how it is. Could be a supervisor even. How do you handle it within yourself? How do you not become what you're going through? Not even what you went through, that we know that, but what you're going through right at this moment. How are you going to handle that? And that's still a healing process. So I feel we'll be healing until we transition, until I go back to spirit, to my spiritual self. I'll still be healing. And prayerfully in that life, I'll be helping people to still heal. I say now my life is like that of Harriet Tubman. I found a way to freedom. I found that, way to freedom. Then I go back and help other people find their way too. So it's a process to me, and it always happens.
Thank you so much. I think we've heard from all three of you that healing is a process, that it doesn't really end. And that's why, to be in the space where you feel like you've become from victim to survivor, but the survivor doesn't just say that you're done, everything's behind you. You still have to continue that journey of healing. And every time it comes back, you have to understand what's the next step forward, right? So that's a very difficult journey to take for all of us. And I would love, you have some wise words. I'd love for you to upload some of your words into our healing words on the website. I love the whole community to come together and share everything that helps them heal, because that'll help some other people heal as well. I want to go back to the questions, and this one's directed to you, Melanie. Healing isn't always about like fixing what's broken. I think sometimes it's about discovering who we are as a person. And so, you talked about the one-on-one discussions that you have with your patients. How do you help people reconnect with themselves?
I think that's very important. Who am I? Is what we often well, I talk to my clients about that. How do I help them find themselves again? It's a really big journey. We tailor in my work. It's like not one size fits all, right? So I'm very in tuned in the session where I'm asking what they may or experiencing what they may be experiencing in the session. So I try to ask them if they can identify who's in the room at that moment, which is usually the inner child. And then I ask them to see, are you able to see who you are prior to whatever you're experiencing or you've experienced? And so it's a journey of, I do historical work with them first. And so then they're able to find themselves maybe not at the first session, but like the fourth or fifth or sixth or seventh session, or maybe 2 years later. Because their identity is usually fragmented at times when this occurs to them. And if you only when it's safe for that individual will they really finally start to find out who they really are. Does that make sense? Because it's not like it's still very dangerous out there, even though they're not in it. And until they get safe, that's when they start to realize who they really are.
So how do they know when they feel safe, or how do they know that that journey of safety is there?
Okay, so we all have a nervous system. And right now, if I were to ask all of you, how are you feeling? You probably could say, "Oh, I feel great. I have anxiety, or I feel something in my body." So when I ask them, "How are you feeling in the room today?" Or "What are you feeling right now?" I'm not here. I don't feel like I'm here. So they're probably dissociated. Then I'll say, "Okay, so we'll do some grounding. We'll get in," and I'll say, "How do you feel right now?" And they'll be like, "I'm okay." Then they start to realize they're safe. So I do a lot of nervous system regulation with my clients and myself and my friends, but just in general, it's all about having the ability to stabilize yourself. Does that make sense? I hope that makes a little sense.
That totally makes sense, because this is going back to your body. How does your body
Right.
feel? How are you emotionally feeling? And so once you do the breath work or the meditation, the things that actually helps to calm your body down, then you feel a little bit safer. You're not in this chaotic headspace, right?
Correct.
Okay.
It's the nervous system. It's how you regulate your own nervous system. So a lot of what I do is I help you work through that. And then it's not only talk therapy, because talk therapy is fantastic. It's phenomenal. It saved my life. My Hannah, if you're listening to me, my old therapist, I love you because she saved my life. I was very suicidal.
Wow.
That was my go-to for my drug. But talk therapy helped me understand I didn't need to do that. And then I learned somatic things, and then I started to regulate myself. And then now I teach that in my sessions. So.
I love that. I love that you're throwing out, here are some modalities that you can think about. Here are some modalities that has helped me. And so it's great to give people options, because I think sometimes people just don't have an idea of what to do, where to go, who to talk to, whether they want to just keep it within themselves. And it makes it really difficult for just everybody in general to be able to share what their vulnerabilities are, right? So thank you for that. Maria, I have a different question for you. how can everyday people support someone who has experienced trauma without trying to fix them?
Um, there's a really great book by Dr. Bruce Perry and Oprah called What Happened to You. If you are not familiar, you should totally read it. That book was something that when I read it was something, it just kind of blew my mind open, was like, duh, yeah, of course. Why aren't we just naturally taught this? And so it's kind of been a leading cause in my work to help people understand that if you lead with curiosity, if you see that person as the human and not how they were portrayed, whether you found like law enforcement, if you picked up a girl on the street, right? Lose the prostitute lens. Just get curious, right? And I think that that's probably the most powerful thing we can do when we're trying to not re-traumatize a survivor or victim is just to get curious and to be genuine about wanting to help. And I worked kind of as a liaison for the FBI while my federal case is being played out in courts because I grew very close to the victim specialist. She took the time, as Melanie is talking about, like basically a talk therapist, and just took so much time with me to help me understand that it wasn't my fault. And I think once you kind of get over that cliff of like, oh, I'm not the reason that that happened, like, okay, then you can kind of start to feel safer to ask questions, and you can explore things in a way that you maybe didn't even try to before. And so I realized how traumatizing it can be for survivors to even go to the police. And so I think that, when you're talking to survivors and you don't want to re-traumatize, it really is just seeing the human and talking to the human and wanting to help that human and relate in any way that you can with the human in that situation. Because to Dr. Deborah's story, the way you describe how he never cared. He had his ulterior motive. He knew. I just couldn't help it. Like, how clever of him to know not to bring up these red flags. I mean, what a really articulated, thought out, methodical way of operating in somebody else's head who is just innocent. But
Yeah.
that's how it happens. It's the people who don't have the support system or the people who let on that like I need help because that alone is hard to do, you know? But I think that that's why it's so important to have these conversations and to have these conversations with the people we're having them with. I love what Melanie said about somatic and working it out of your body, because there's a quote that I read that just branded itself on my brain, and it is, the axe forgets, but the tree remembers.
Mm.
And so I think a lot of people that experience are victims of a sex crime, especially say you were raped in a bed, molested in a bed. People forget your body's association now to that bed is what? It's not rest. It's not peace. It's not somewhere I want to go lay at the end of the day. And we don't think about that. We think, gosh, I drank too much coffee today, or something's wrong with me that I can't sleep. And what we're not picking up is that our body is like, hey, remember when that thing happened? We got to be alert. We can't let that happen again. We got to sleep with one eye open, kind of thing. And we become those sleeping ducks that sleep with one eye open. I can't tell you last time I got a restful night of sleep. Maybe after a surgery and I got medicated, you know what I mean? But the way that we write things off, because we are survivors and we internalize so much of that blame and so much of that shame, and we don't want to investigate further out of fear it could be our fault. It's not. And so I think that if for systems and for professionals to just be curious and what happened to you and how can I help you and how can I get you to safety so that you can help me understand what do you need right now. That's been super powerful in my experience with trying to connect with survivors is I want you to feel safe. I don't care about anything else. How can we get you there? And then I'll ask you that next question. But number one, if you don't feel safe, how do I get you there? And just leading with curiosity and genuine, just the genuine love for another human. It's very dehumanizing on the internet these days. So if we can restore that in any way, I think that's what we should do.
I love that you ended on that because my whole, at least with the work that I do, not just in the invisible movement, but externally as well, it's all about restoring the human dignity. I feel like human dignity is something that we have totally taken for granted, and we treat people in manners that are so disrespectful. And feel like we need to bring that respect back in any way, shape, and form. And it doesn't matter what space you're in. It's like treat each other with respect, with honor, with, a compassion. Like, I don't understand why we don't do that as a norm. So thank you for, saying all of that. And also with the quotes, all you ladies, anything that you want to share, just dump it on the website because you have so much good things to share with everybody. I want people to read, all your quotes, recommend your books, do all of these things because this is the only way that people can learn how to heal with the information that they have in hand. And Melanie and Dr. Deborah, feel free, and Mariah, when we have this conversation, feel free to jump in at any time to continue that conversation. If a point hits you, jump in and make that point. Don't feel like you have to wait for me to like signal and say, hey, who wants to talk next? Because I will have questions for you, but I also want you all to authentically have a good conversation because that's what it's all about. So if anyone else is inspiring you to say something, just feel free to say it. So if I don't hear anyone, I'm going to go to the next question. And this one's for you,
Um,
Doc. Oh, go ahead.
Aloha. I just wanted to, because both Maria and Dr. Dunson mentioned that, that um, a safety net, and this is remind me of a situation that when I was trying to with a victim of a trafficking case, he had to get out of this place, and he was walking for hours in 125-degree heat in the middle of Bakersfield for many hours before I was able to pick him up. And, you know, he didn't want a bed. He actually just said, just take me to the behind of a Dollar Tree store behind, and I'll just sleep there. And you think about what he had to have gone through to just to leave that situation, to just his sense of safety was behind dumpster at a Dollar Tree at on a heat wave in the middle of Bakersfield. And that type of uh, when you brought that up, and the mindset, this is how we sometimes have to remember how where that space that you were at, and I really am appreciative of you sharing that information with us and all of us. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
no, this is awesome for sure. And Dr. Deborah, I want to ask you real quickly, just, I mean, what have survivors taught you about healing that most people don't understand?
Most people don't understand that there's no one size fit all. And as I told you guys that just like you just gave me about the dumpster, that just brought back so much in working with my clients. And because I work so much with awareness with pastors and leaders, actually, and nothing to any faith because it's not even attached to any type of faith. But to know that sometimes just saying a prayer, many times just saying a prayer doesn't do it. And so a lot of our people stay quiet. They don't speak up because if you're I'm just going to say saved, sanctified, Holy Ghost filled, you shouldn't have that because you're saved. And so it brings about shame. So I like that we have to recognize that everybody's healing does not look the same. It doesn't look the same, and what they need does not look the same. That's why I'm so happy to be here with these women who all just kind of work in different areas. And as I'm working with a team on I'm writing an article about it, the church's response and responsibility to trafficking. What is our, as a pastor myself, what is our responsibility to that? And how do we make room and make space for people to heal? And so just looking at that, you don't put a person in the bed. If they say it, no, I'd rather be behind the dumpster, then we need to find a safe place for that person to heal because their story is real too. We may think that somebody would rather be in a bed, but it all depends. We don't know what the trauma is. And also in working with them, I work a lot with my clients in defining the emotion behind everything. What is the driving emotion? Because we say angry, I'm hurt, I'm this, but really get into the root of defining the emotion so that you can know that you're on the right track with it, because anger covers a lot of stuff. It covers sad, covers a lot of stuff. And a lot of times we get stuck in an emotion, because I didn't realize that I actually was stuck as that 8-year-old little girl when I was introduced and I was groomed at that age. And I actually not the typical of what people think of as a trafficking, I'll call it victim, but as a trafficking, someone involved in trafficking, because I got divorced in my 30s. So I was older than that. I still call myself a young woman because of my age now, but I actually wasn't. So my talk in the trafficking division in Charlotte, North Carolina, actually was about trafficking has many faces. And so I wasn't a young woman. I was just a woman starting over after divorce and trying to go back to school and thinking I know it. I was already a pastoral counselor. I was in school for psychotherapy. And so it doesn't have a face and give us room to heal. I'm speaking for, I just took my position and give us room to heal. Asking the church to please, I asked the church and the community too, but I have found the faith community, uh, my my area where we need room to heal.
And I think we're going to be talking a little
I
bit
just
more in
resonates.
depth about that next month as well, right, Dr. Deborah? So we'll expand on that topic then. But did somebody want to jump in? I heard a voice. I wasn't sure if somebody tried to jump in.
I just resonate so much with that. Yeah, Dr. Deborah, everything you said, right? Because again, I didn't even know that what had happened to me was trafficking, because oftentimes societies will have a certain idea of what something looks like based off of media. And our media, Taken is the movie that a lot of people have kind of like, okay, that's trafficking, so get the skin under the nails. But it doesn't, like modern day trafficking doesn't always look like bondage and chains. To everything you've said, it can look so different, and it can look like somebody that just wants to help you, or somebody that wants to take care of you. I've got your back. And another thing that I think is important to touch on, especially when, of course, it can be man or woman that's a victim of trafficking or sexual exploitation, but women often hear, well, why didn't you report? Right? Why didn't you just report? Why are you crying? Why are you complaining about this? And why didn't you make a police report? Let me tell you, I spoke with a woman who was picked up on prostitution. She was being trafficked, and the police officer who picked her up said, well, since you're a prostitute anyway, I guess I'll have my go. And he raped her before he took her back to the police station.
Oh my.
And I was like, oh, because that was never my experience. And when I tell you, I was the only one shocked at a full table. And people are like, right, this happens all the time, mainly in marginalized communities, but they're not going to fight back. And so why would they ever report again? And that doesn't get reported on enough. That doesn't get talked about enough. And so I appreciate, Dr. Deborah, everything you just said, because yes, it isn't going to always look like Taken. In fact, it isn't probably going to look like Taken the majority of the time, because to your point, they know, oh, that's a red flag for them. They're going to remember Liam Neeson. They're going to remember hiding under the bed and these details. So let's hide it and identify it, or put a mask on it, if you will. And those masks with AI, with the internet, can just have evolved way, way, way faster than our tech and than our policies. And so again, to the point of like, aloha, thank you for just having these conversations, because yes, I feel that in my bones, everything you just said.
No, these conversations fascinate me, and I think that we need to be having more and more of these. And I don't understand why people are so afraid to have these kinds of conversations, because we're all here. If we were here to support and collaborate and help each other and partner together, this is gonna be much smaller than it seems, right? But the fact that everyone's going at it, sort of alone and doing their own special little niche area, we are not going to be able to counter what is happening with the traffickers. I mean, they're having conferences in Las Vegas, and they're learning about, how psychological, training, like how do we groom, victims, and here we are as people who are trying to counter that, and we don't have a coordinated effort. So the whole idea behind the Invisible Movement and you ladies, wanting to be a part of the conversation is to create that collaboration, is to create something that's bigger than our individual selves so that we can counter the trafficking that's out there, right? So it is, I mean, honestly, I'm always so thankful and grateful that I'm running into people who are willing to share their stories, because that is where it starts. It's that bringing that awareness and having that courage to share, your vulnerabilities, but to also share your strengths and your courage and get you where you ladies are today. It's amazing, an amazing journey, in my opinion. So we have about 10 minutes to go, and I want to ask one last question, and we'll go do the round here on this. And then I want to give Melanie enough time to do, a bit of the somatic healing, and then I'll wrap up with a closing. But amazing conversation so far. So let me finish with one last question. What is the one message that you hope everyone remembers after today's conversation? And since we have you on the screen, Mariah, go ahead and you can start there.
You are not the worst thing that's ever happened to you. And a lot of times, sometimes you can become the person who would have saved you in all of the situations you've ever gone through if you are able to extract the lesson. So my Pinterest quote that I tell myself every day or in my low moments is it's not a loss if you find the lesson in it. And what you can do with that lesson, you can help and save so many people. So don't be ashamed of what happened to you, because that's not you. And so never, ever, ever, if I could just encourage anybody, just unidentify with your trauma and use it, because it's not who you are. It's just a fact about what happened to you, and you're not what happened to you.
That's an awesome and powerful statement. I like that a lot. Melanie, did you want to share your message?
Sure. This is not the end of your story. The best is yet to come. You just hang in there. It'll be different one day in a good way.
Well, that's awesome too. So powerful. I mean, look at you ladies as examples, right? So great. Thank you so much. And Dr. Deborah, what's your one
I like
message?
I say what's in my first book, healing is a process and freedom is a journey. Don't beat your own ass. Give yourself some grace. It's all a process.
That's good. It's really nice. Paul, did you want to add yours?
I just wanted to say thank you, and actually, um, your when you share your stories, we all can learn, but also understand a bigger picture, because it's not something that's isolated from sex to labor trafficking. These are stories that it's not, if you keep it in, others will not be able to learn. And these stories are so powerful, but it also goes into the prevention and re-victimization. As you can understand that it's very hard for somebody to, as really, I hate to say survivors, because in many cases the vulnerability has never gone away, and the re-victimization is always going to be possible. And these powerful stories, and being here and being able to share your stories help others trying to move in their journey in life. And I really appreciate all of you in doing this. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Paul. And I think for me, I want to say that we restore human dignity because I always go back to human dignity, but we restore human dignity when we care enough to share our stories. And so this is a bit more like a storytelling, and I think we've had some amazing stories today, and I know we're going to have some amazing stories next month as well as, the rest of the time that we keep hosting this. So ladies, let's go to Melanie to give us an exercise, a meditational exercise. And then after you're done with that, Melanie, I'm going to hop back on and do a closing to officially thank you all. And then we'll wrap up. Are you ready?
Okay, so thank you for this opportunity. It's just something I do at the end of my sessions usually, or just in general. So why don't we just kind of feel our bodies right now? Probably have a lot on our mind since we've been going through a lot of detail in this seminar. But right now, if you can feel your feet, let's feel our feet right now. Make sure you feel grounded, that you know you're here. Okay, and then I want you to kind of feel your hands and your fingers and see that you can feel your fingers. And then your shoulders, go ahead and like kind of relax your shoulders. You can move a little bit and want you to start thinking of things that are soft, soft and gentle. Okay, you can close your eyes if you feel comfortable. If not, it's okay. But just think about something gentle. It could be cotton candy. It could be a pillow. And then I want you to imagine that this softness that you feel from whatever it is actually saturating your body right now. And anything that you feel in your body that may be achy or just doesn't feel right, go ahead and just make it as if the softness that you feel is just on top of that. And then internally tell yourself it's okay to feel peace. Remember to feel your toes and your hands and the softness. Today it's about gentleness on your body. If you feel that you're breathing hard a little bit or fast, you can put your hand on your heart and you can say, it's okay. Start to breathe slower. In through your mouth, out through your mouth. Slow your heartbeat down. Remember that the softness is enveloping your body right now. And then I want you to think of something that makes you full of joy. What makes you joyful right now? For me, it's the laughter that I heard yesterday at the camp. What makes you joyful? If there's anything else, I want you to scan your body and say, if you're tense, it's okay for you to go now. I'm allowing softness in. Sit there for a moment and remember this feeling. And I'm going to count from 3 to 1. And when I count to 1, I want you to slowly get back into the room. And take a deep breath. 3, 2, 1. Slowly go back into the room. Take a deep breath. And welcome back.
That was amazing. Thank you so much. I really feel so relaxed. Oh, ladies, I am going to close out by thank you thanking all of you incredible, amazing speakers for your strength and your courage and your expertise and your experiences and all the commitments that you have towards the jobs that you do in creating a safer and healthier, space for the community that we serve. And I love that your stories, it's completely inspired me, and I feel like it's inspired Paul and hopefully the rest of the audience, who will get to see your stories. And I'm so honored to have you all here and to be able to share with us on this Invisible Movement series. And I'm so looking forward to next month, because I know that there's going to be more that you're going to be able to share, and just the expertise that you have and the experiences. And it's tough to say that we've been through so much hardship, but those experiences have defined you and in the way that you've come out so strong, and to be able to share this deep understanding of what you've been through has made this collaboration so much stronger. And so I'm inviting everybody, if this discussion inspired you, to just come and continue the journey next month with us, with these wonderful ladies in part 2, and then visit our website at www.invisiblemovement.org, where you will find resources that are not just for educational purposes, but also to support your healing and your reflection and your action. And these ladies will contribute, hopefully, to adding their perspectives and their art and their words as well to the website. So my call to action, I always have to have a call to action. I want you to all to share the website with somebody who may benefit from the resources that we have there. Sign the pledge, browse the website, check out the newsletters. You'll see the bios of the 3 ladies that we have on our panel today. Check out the prior webinars as well. But I think most importantly is I want to encourage everyone to continue these conversations. And I always fall back to like kindness, because when we act kindly to others, there's a moment of awareness that we bring, in terms of what we are willing to share, our stories, or just compassion, and just being able to just give that bit of love will help to elevate others. And so I think that's important to do on a day-to-day basis, no matter how hard we're struggling. And we need to, as some of the ladies have said today, give those compassion back to ourselves as well. So thank you for being a part of the Invisible Movement. I feel like together we can make the invisible visible. And I look forward to seeing everyone at the next webinar in July. So see you all again soon. And thank you so much, ladies. See you next month.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.